Communication is one of the greatest influencers to many people on a daily basis. Whether by mail, in person, or through social media, life would not be the same if we could not communicate. There are some conditions that make communicating harder, especially during childhood, and it's time to get connected. Our guest today is Miss Jane Fraser, who is the president of the Stuttering Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization helping those who stutter since 1947. Miss Jane, thank you so much, and welcome to the Weekend Connection.
Oh, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Miss Jane, how did you become so involved with this Stuttering Foundation?
Well, that's the question that I love to answer. My own father struggled with stuttering for many years, all his life really, and he founded the foundation. He also was one of the founders of Napa Auto Parts, so it didn't keep him from leading a successful life. But at age 43, he decided to tithe, and that is to give 10% of his annual earnings to help others who stutter. So that was the origin of the Stuttering Foundation. Of course, like you said, we're founded in 1947, so more than 75 years ago. We've been around for a while.
That's incredible. And what would you say is the major mission of the Stuttering Foundation? How do you help those who stutter?
Well, I think one of our missions, in particular with children, is to try to prevent stuttering from being a lifelong problem. And we can do that in a lot of ways. Certainly, in the old days, children were spanked for stuttering. They were reprimanded. They were told not to do it. They were frowned upon. And we know better now. We know, we know all the kinds of things we can do as children. As children learn to speak, it's a huge job. Around the ages of 2 or 3, there's just an explosion of learning. And so anything we can do to make those years, make talking fun, making speaking enjoyable. And I always, I tell people the nursery rhymes have been with us for 500 years plus, but they're fun, they're rhyming. The more you read with your child, the better, from a language point of view, but also from communication. They remember those rhymes. They have fun saying them. They're silly rhymes, Dr. Seuss, or nursery rhymes, cow jumped over the moon, little dog laughed to see such fun. They're lots of fun. And so the enjoyment helps build those good neurological pathways for those children just having this explosion of language.
Absolutely. And we're speaking with Miss Jane Fraser today, the president of the Stuttering Foundation, a nonprofit organization helping those who stutter since the 1940s. And Miss Jane, what usually is the cause for a stutter that would present itself in a child?
Well, genetics plays a role. Say 60% of those who stutter do have a family member. My dad stuttered, my uncle stuttered. I have cousins who don't stutter to the same degree, but have kind of irregular speech. The other thing that we run into is that the child is literally thinking faster than he can speak. So he's got very advanced language. There's a lot of times very bright kids, but his physical mechanism isn't ready to handle that much speech. So one of the things we suggest is, don't try to make a baby Einstein. You read nursery rhymes, read simple things. Don't brag about what a big vocabulary your child has, because that's putting too many demands on that child. We also know that neurophysiology plays a role. Some of us just process speech and language a little bit differently. It's like some people are fabulous basketball players, and other people their intent is to be a radio announcer like you, and they're very, very fluent. So it's all along a continuum. So kids who stutter may develop speech a little bit more slowly, but doesn't mean they can't be wonderful speakers. I mean, just take a look at James Earl Jones. You know, what a dynamic speaker and one of the greatest communicators ever was. And he was a person who did, in fact, continue to stutter throughout his life. You would never know it. But I think use him up as an example because what an outstanding communicator. Again, not just speaker, but communicator relating. And the family dynamics play a role. If you've got a little boy 3 and an older sister 5 who interrupts him every time he opens his mouth, then that's something that you as a family need to work on. Taking turns, passing the salt shaker at dinner, so the person who has the salt shaker gets to speak. There are all sorts of tricks to try to normalize who gets to talk so that everybody isn't talking at once. But those are other just things that will help. So basically, cause is definitely genetics and neurophysiology. What is the child neurologically bringing to the table that makes a difference?
Absolutely. And it really is a great thing to know that when a child does have a stutter, that's not the end of the line. There is so much potential that is still inside them to be a great communicator. Like you said, I believe James Earl Jones, I didn't even know that about him, but still he had such a powerful and influential career because of what he was able to do, how he was able to overcome it.
Yes, it's amazing, isn't it? Well, I think, there are guidelines for parents of little 2 and 3-year-olds. And one is, you may want to reduce the pace of your own speech and speak like you are today, for example. Another idea is ask fewer questions. Some parents will just say, what color is that? Or, what did you do today? And you can ease into that by saying, I wonder what you had for lunch today. And that immediately takes the pressure off that child to respond. So lots of ways to remove pressure off those little 3-year-olds. I think sometimes we don't realize how much pressure we put a child under with direct questions. What's your name? How old are you? You hear that a lot with grandparents or friends that come to visit, what's your name? So try to avoid those with, I wonder what you had for lunch. I wonder what color that is. I wonder if you like that music. And I think listening, when you do listen to your child, make sure it's full listening. If you can't, it's good to maintain discipline. I can't listen right now, but in 5 minutes, we'll sit down and I'll have a listen. So I think, normal rules apply. You don't want to create a problem if you have 3 or 4 children that you're giving in to the child who stutters. The same rules need to apply for all the children. So if you take 5 minutes with that child, then you're going to need that special attention time with all of them, and you'll see they'll all profit. So lots of just good parenting rules will help the child who stutters and will also help with communication.
Definitely. It depends on the parent as much as it does, perhaps even more so than the child that is going through that stage, that development stage. And would you say that there are early signs to look for? Is there a chance to prevent a stutter before it fully comes into effect?
Oh, absolutely. And what I'm suggesting now are good tips to start with. And I want to reiterate that parents don't cause stuttering. They don't cause it, but what they do certainly can make a difference. But yes, I think that, parents know. For example, if the child says, I want to go to the store. But if they say, I want, you hear the difference there. There's a stress, there's a strain to it, and something's not right when it gets beyond the, I just want to do this, and hear more, I want to, or I want to. parents know when it's gone from just regular old repetition. And, a lot of that is normal because they're searching around for what they want to say. They may want an ice cream cone, and they may start out with I, and then they forget what it was they were going to ask for anyway. So in some of it, it's just pushing for time and pushing to find what it was they were going to say. So, but again, I think parents' ear, you just know when it's gone a little bit beyond what you would consider normal. And that's normally when we hear from parents. And by the way, our website, Stuttering Help, HELP.org, lots of materials for this age group can be found online, and they're all free.
And that was stutteringhelp.org, stutteringhelp.org, and I was taking a look at it earlier. There is a plethora of resources that are available for either parents or the kids that are trying to navigate through this stage. And what would you say when they are taking these first few moments in this journey? What are usually the first steps that they must take in order to help that stutter?
The child or the parent. The first steps for the parent, I think, would be to watch the 7 tips video. And I've just gone through those tips, with the talking and the asking fewer questions. I think that's the first step for the parents. For the child, I think once that child feels that the pressure is off to speak, I think parents will see a miraculous return to stuttering. If it does persist, then that may be time to seek the help of a speech language pathologist. But that speech language pathologist is more or less going to guide the parents and then may help the child learn to say the words easily. So, for example, if their name is Beth, learning how to say Beth, learning how to ease into that B sound, or if their name is Jack, learning how to say Jack, and easing into sounds that they felt were difficult sounds for them before. So just easy onsets, relaxed, easy talking. Children learn, special vocabulary for that, like bumpy speech. If your speech is bumpy, let's smooth it out. So those are some of the things that a therapist will work with.
And we're speaking with Miss Jane Fraser, who is the president of the Stuttering Foundation. And would you say that there is any research that either has been done or that is currently happening that could greatly help future stuttering problems?
Well, I think one of the things that feared situations and feared words, fear is a big element in stuttering. Because, you think about if you woke up tomorrow and you stuttered, you couldn't do your radio interviews, or you might have trouble doing it. You might not know which words you're going to stutter on. So dealing with the fear that often surrounds stuttering is one of the big problems. And the latest research is on what's called cognitive behavior therapy. And an example of that would be a person who says, if I order a cup of coffee at Starbucks and stutter like that, everybody's going to laugh at me. And then the therapist accompanies them to Starbucks, and he orders the cup of coffee, and no one laughs. And he begins to realize, hey, it doesn't matter. I don't need to be afraid. I can say I need a cup of coffee, and no one even reacts. And so that realization that you don't have to be afraid, that's the way cognitive behavior therapy works. In other words, enter that feared situation and reduce the fear gradually. I've heard it used with people who have a fear of flying. Get used to thinking about an airplane, looking at a picture of an airplane, then walking onto a plane that's not going anywhere in a museum. These are just tools to help people deal with fear and to approach situations that they previously feared. They're horrible situations for people who stutter, like walking into a party and not knowing anybody. Well, that's difficult. I think the realization that that normal speakers have problems in these same situations is important too. I think sometimes if we have a problem, we think we're the only ones and not realize that normal speakers might be afraid to speak out at church, might also be afraid to speak out at the local Board of Commission meeting, realizing that others share that problem and not necessarily because they stutter. I think that's a really important realization for all of us. Hey, I'm not the only one that's scared to death of speaking in public. So yeah, there are lots of ways to deal with fear. And the best way is just to confront that fear. And you can't do that overnight. You have to build up slowly. And that's what cognitive behavior therapy is all about.
Well, Miss Jane, we appreciate the time that you've taken to come be with us today and speak on this early childhood stuttering problem. That's all for today's Weekend Connection. Weekend Connection airs every week, 4 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays, here on the Bible Broadcasting Network.
Thank you for listening to this feature, a production of BBN, the Bible Broadcasting Network. BBN provides 24-hour Christian programming, great Christian music, and Bible teaching. Listen to BBN by clicking the link